All right, so continuing the discussion about repairs. On the factory entity in the group that we had extracted, by default, the disable repairs setting for the entity properties is set to false. So if you want to disable repairs and not have mechs and other people fighting over spawning and repairing at the same time, you would enable this. Depends on what your map needs, but if you can afford to put a repair bay next to it, which is what we're going to do next, that might be a better option. The only thing is that you can't limit the repairs for that repair area, so they will always repair anything that somebody can access or put their asset in, regardless of what kind of asset it is. So let's do that, and that's in the prefab, in the MWL assets, and repair bay. You can have two different types. Either or will work. They just look slightly different. And here we go. Just place it. It's not very nice here. It's not very flat, so we can just smooth that out on the ground. Just quickly go to the modify, see what the height is, and look at the Z height right here. It's about 18.8. Enter it there. Expand it to 10 or so, and then just smooth out the area. And make it the same height so it's relatively flat. Bring it a little higher, 18.9. There we go. Escape. All right, so we have our repair bay here. Now, if we take a look at this, there are two objects in the prefab: the shape, the area shape, and the repair bay itself. If we want to take a look at them, we can extract them. And since it's only two objects, well, it's no big deal. There we go. And as you can see, the shape, the area shape, is targeted to the actual repair bay. The area shape determines, of course, what can repair there and where the object actually has to be to trigger the repairs when they shut down. So, if we go double click on repair bay 2, the repair bay entity opens up, and we can see that check for team is enabled. So this will then always check for team, and right now the starting team is neutral, and the actual entity is hooked up to the repair bay model itself. So what we want to do is eventually connect both the repair bay and the factory and the mech hangar to our capture point, which is right here, the mid capture point. But one thing that we don't have yet is something to actually spawn as BA. And you can do that in multiple ways, but one way is to use the BA bunker. Now, let's see, where is that exactly? Alright, so the BA bunker is found in TC neutral mech base. Now we can place, well, something like that. But notice that this BA bunker also has a capture point in the prefab. And that's something that would obviously add some confusion, because there are suddenly two capture points in the middle area. So we're going to have to extract it and remove it. So again, extract the all. And we can do the group thing again. Select it, and then group, open. And there we go, there's the capture point. But notice that it's already linked, so all these spawn points are pointing to the spawn group, and then the spawn group actually is connected to this capture point. So since we're going to get rid of this capture point, the minute we get rid of it, well, it's going to get rid of the links. So that's okay. We'll just reconnect it to the other one. There we go. You can see that the group resizes. And if we take a look and refresh here, we have our BA bunker mid group. And here's our spawn group. And that's the spawn group that is connected to all the spawn points. So what I like to do is to put the factory entity, if possible, repair bay, ammo entity and such, or any type of entity that has to do with clicking something on the minimap right over the capture point, so that when the person actually selects where do they want to spawn, they spawn on the one entity, and they don't have a whole bunch of icons to choose from, and they won't know which one to choose. So if you just place it on top, the spawn group, that's going to be the first thing that they will mouse over, and then when they click on it, they will spawn there. So let's find the actual coordinates of this. So let's make it a little bit simpler. Put it there, 8, 10, well that's fine, and we'll put it at 60. There we go, a little higher. Go back here, let's find our spawn group. And we're going to move the spawn group directly under here. And as you can see, the spawn group lines that are linking to the spawn points are all there. And since we don't have actually proper coordinates here, it's because it's in relationship to the actual spawn group. So we're going to go ahead and detach that spawn group. And as you can see, now it's detached, and suddenly we have the coordinates that we can use and match to this one. So this was 1810, and the other one's 1811. And if we don't see it, sometimes we'll have to just refresh here, and we'll see, there's the spawn group. And we can even make it simpler. We'll just call it spawn group MechWarrior mid, just so that we can identify it more easily. And this was 1810. And since we're going to put it a little bit higher, so we'll put it at 61 meters up instead of 60. The link sometimes doesn't actually show it properly. I think if we reload scripts, no, you might just have to reload the map. Anyways, we'll save. And we can reload the map. Let's see if that fixes the visual thing. It's just a visual thing. Now there we go. All right, so that's done. So the next thing to do is the factory entity from here. And the problem is with this is that if we move this factory entity out, then we're going to lose the ability to get the spawn queues working properly. So we don't want to actually touch that function, I guess. Instead, if we look at this be a bunker, and if you look at the actual items in the group, or the prefab, you're going to find that there's a factory entity here. Nope, sorry, the wrong one. Here we go. And this factory entity is set by default to only spawn allow weapons to be bought, BA weapons to be bought. So we can actually take that factory entity and also move it directly under the spawn point. We'll do the same thing. Move it up a bit. And let's detach it again. And let's set it to 3700 and 1810. And now move it to under it, so 59. Because we're going to definitely see the actual factory entity show up. And visually, you'll actually see the factory icon indicating that this is a buy area for mechs, which it is because we have our mech hanger there, indicating that you can buy mechs there. It's basically a visual helper on the map. All right, so that's done, and we can actually rename this to mid as well. But none of these things are actually attached to the capture point yet. So let's do that. Now, since it's a factory, let's change the name from outpost to factory. And that's what the announcer will say when the factory is under attack, or the capture point is under attack and such. And you'll kind of get an idea of what type of point is under attack. All right, so now we're going to pick the targets, and we're going to pick both the spawn group and the factory. We can simply go filter to mid, and unfortunately it shows also the group, so we get rid of the group, and unfortunately it also still shows it. Yeah, oh well. Anyways, here it is. I'm going to pick the target. We can either click on pick target or pick here. Actually, sorry, click on here. And we have the link. This has to be renamed to capture, lowercase. And we can do the same for the factory. Now you're going to see 2 lines pointing to that capture point. What we do, though, also have to do is make sure that this factory is the mech bay factory is pointing to the capture point. Actually, that the capture point points to it. So let's do that as well. And you can actually sort by types. Actually, no, sorry, you can't sort by types if you have display by tree. It's just depending on how you actually organize the filter data. So anyways, this is the BA bunker, here's the mech hanger, and here's the factory. And we'll pick it. And as you can see, it creates a link to it. And we're going to set that to, whoops, my bad. Go back to the capture point and rename that to capture. Now if we go to it, we are actually going to hide it. Otherwise, on the map, you're going to see the factory here that's perfectly aligned underneath the capture point, and you're going to see a second one over there. And that's going to be a little bit distracting, and people won't know what to click on. So we want to hide this one, make sure it's hidden, make sure that it is false. All right. Also, we have to connect the repair bay to it as well. Another thing we could do is actually make a buy zone around the repair bay. That's something that's sometimes appreciated, so that you can actually get ammo and not run into a spawning mech that's coming out of a mech bay. And to do that, we can either just take another shape, or this shape per se, or just create a shape around there. And let's actually just do that. Shape, make sure that you're on the XY plane. And double click to finish. And then you set the height. It was like having a displayed field so you can actually see what's going on. As you can see, it's a little bit too high, so we're going to actually lower it a bit so it goes into the ground. Good. And now we're going to actually have to create a buy zone entity. And that's going to be a little icon that's under multiplayer, under entity, multiplayer, buy zone. You just drop that somewhere in the middle there. It doesn't have to be in the middle. It's just easier. Just to remember. People will not see this icon on the map, but as you can see, it's a little dollar. There you go. And this is where you tell what you can actually buy here. In this case, we could just do ammo. All right. We're going to link the buy area, and actually we'll just rename it. We'll call it shape. Well, we'll call it buy zone. Zone rep buy zone mid. So rep buy zone mid, yeah. Actually, area zone, just to make it a little bit simpler. And there's the buy zone that we just created. Creates a link to it. And that's renamed to rep buy zone entity mid, which just allows the ammo. And this also then, again, has to be connected to the capture point, or the capture point. Let's rename that to capture point mid. Also has to point to the actual entity. There we go. And rename it again. Alright, so one more thing that we do need is actually a capture area zone. So again, shape. Yes, make sure you're in XY. Set to height something reasonable. Move the whole thing up. Oops, that was the width. There we go. Yeah, we can edit the shape. Be an XY. I want to make it more round. Just add another. Hold down Control if you want to add another point, and then left click. Go next to it. Hold down Control. Anyways, the mini king of the hill. Literally. Alright. That's that. And now we're going to actually target the capture point. Press escape. Pick it. And there we go. That's it. A good way to actually mark the capture zone is with the prefab TC beacons. And this one is usually the right one to use. You can use the other ones, but this one's the one that's intact. Some of them look authentic, half broken, but, well, yeah. You can angle it if you want to, but whatever you choose. And to typically mark the sides where it is. Another good thing is to actually mark the terrain slightly differently. So use different texture, lights. There's many ways to bring attention to the actual capture point and the zone itself. But this is one of the more common ones that everybody recognizes in the game. Actually, you just follow terrain. No, not quite. Alright, to copy things, Control C, Control V. There you go. So now we have their little idea of where the actual capture point is. Alright. Another type of alternative mech bay you can use for as a neutral mech bay is the where's it now? Oh yeah. It's a single mech hanger. Now This one is the one that's found in SA maps as well as Zotomir, and you'll see the difference between between them. And this obviously has a wet rain effect to it, so if you choose. This one's a little bit more busy. It's got more stuff in it. And as you can see, it has the doors that trigger upon opening, but they only trigger from the inside. So if you want to actually use this in a TC map, you're going to have to modify it. Again, extract all. Group it. Call it mid with doors. Display as tree. And as you can see, if you actually go in it, there's more stuff in it. And actually, even by just me going around here, it will trigger the doors. So it's a little bit more interesting as a mech hanger. I think the lighting is also set slightly differently. Yeah, you can have different lighting areas. All right, but this also comes with a spawn group, and I believe, does it come with a capture point? Let's check. No, it doesn't, but it does come with a spawn group. So if we would want to attach this, we'll do the same thing as the other one. But actually, let's fix the spawn group, spawn doors. So let's see, where's the spawn area? If you can't mouse over it, we can always remove the brushes. And let's see, that's the buy zone. Here we go, here's the door shape. So this is actually, if we go over here, the target itself is the SA door, which is the animated door that opens and closes. But it can just only be triggered from the inside. So if we want to trigger from the outside, we have to copy this. So put it on the x-axis to keep it more or less the same area, and copy it over. And just somewhere in the front there, let's enable the brushes again to see where we're at. So that's going to be the trigger zone, but that's very close to the front, so I typically like to open it up a bit so we can edit the shape. Put an XY, let's put it on a grid, we'll put it on 2, and there we go, something like that. That's relatively equidistant, so when people come up close, it's going to open. And you don't have to be right against the nose. See? So it already opens up. So the minute you go in there, it triggers it. And it'll automatically close after a while. So that's another one. Like I said, there's a spawn group already here. So if you want to actually enable this spawn group and connect it to the capture point, well, we have to actually connect to the capture point. But then you're going to see 2 icons. So again, the best thing to do is actually grab the spawn group and move it underneath the capture point or over it, whichever one you want to have as the default. This also then, of course, adds a little bit of confusion because then you're either going to be spawning at 2 locations. So you should choose one or the other. So if you don't want to have a bunker, then you remove that spawn group and the whole bunker, and you just point the spawn group from the factory underneath the, over the actual capture point. And we can do that very quickly. Find the spawn group. There it is. Detach it from the group. move it up. 3700 and 1810, I believe. And then if we want to put it above, oops. Why is this so far below? I thought it was, right, 60. So there you go. And then of course, you have to connect it. I forgot what it was called. Let's see. Oh yes, we extracted it, so it must be this one. Pick. There we go. Rename the link to capture. And there we go. That's how you would do that. Then of course, then we'd have to get rid of this spawn group. Actually, you probably could do hidden in-game. You could toggle that for the other one, but in any case, you do either or. Otherwise, it's going to add confusion. Anyway, so we'll just get rid of this whole thing, and that's it's just another way of doing it. All right. Another thing that we should do is actually use layers. So layers are under here. It organizes things considerably, so we'll just call it mid cap, and we can grab, well, everything right here and just throw it into, make sure we're not selecting anything else. Click on the layer button and then select mid cap, and now we have mid cap. So if we want to disable it, but we still have everything there, okay, select it, and vice versa. Disable the mains, nothing there. All right. Another thing we can do is add ASF and VTOLs, and that's going to be found in the prefabs again. So that's under TOA critical. And that's HQ Aerospace, CL and IS, I believe. Let's just see. And I had forgotten if this was the CL side or the IS side. I think this is the CL side, so yes. Let's see. Let's get a little closer. I think that's good. Yeah. And there we go. We have ourselves a nice, sorry, a clan aerospace base. Do the same for IS. Rotate it. Now, of course, if you're, oops, Or underwater here. Ah! That's hilarious. This whole thing underwater? Not just... That's where the water starts. Okay. Well, we can fix that by... I'll find the terrain and bring it up just a bit. So here it's 16. So put it at 19 or 18. And as you can see, the road and the decals kind of have disappeared. That's okay. It'll regenerate the minute you click on them. It'll regenerate them and paint them over the new height. But yeah, you just want to have everything smooth as possible on the runways, because any type of minor bumps will throw an ASF. And, well, won't be fun. As you can see, you just click on it and away you go. But now, since we've raised it a bit, so we'll have to change the height. That's close enough. And actually, these two, this whole prefab is actually two separate prefabs. So if you actually want to get rid of just the VTOL component, you can actually always just take out the VTOL section out and move it somewhere else. The only thing is that there's only one spawn area, which is in the middle here. So if you move it too far away, well then, you know, it'll take a while for you to actually get over here. And then you'll actually have to create a separate spawn group for the ASF and factory entity and such. So it gets a little bit more complicated. But in any case, most of the time, these two are connected or relatively close. And of course, then you can texture the ground a little bit and make it look a bit better. Yeah, we'll discuss that later. Let's see what else is there. Oh yeah, there's just a few tidbits. The rep bizones, the bizones and the shapes all have area IDs, and these area IDs have to match the actual entity that they're connected to. Otherwise, they won't work. So let's say, for example, this rep bizone entity mid has a area ID of 0, and as you can see, the by area ID for the entity itself is also 0. You can reuse the same one over and over again. It's no real worry. But at least when it comes to buy zones and repair zones, as you can see here, area ID 0, and if I go to repair entity, area ID is, I think it's set to here, if I'm not mistaken, 0. But since it's actually a model, it's attached to it. Yeah. So yeah, that's normally taken care of automatically in the prefab. Alright, so if we want to actually add some turrets, turrets are found in arch type entity. And if they're none here, we're going to actually have to add them via the database again. And that would be under entities. And I think it's under MWLL props. Let's just double check. Multiplayer. Yes, there we go. So that's loaded. Oops, sorry. Let me redo that, because it was on the other window. Actually click on open, and then it would be under MWLL props, and you click on open, and then it'll actually show you multiplayer auto turrets. And here we have all the turrets. the ones that you typically want to use the most, AMS for protection at home bases. Will shoot down friendly fire and enemy fire projectiles, missiles and such. Calliope, the one that has the SRMs and lasers and I believe has machine guns. Camera just simply targets, doesn't do any damage. Eagle Eye, which is very powerful air defense. The Hawkeye is a much less powerful one. It has a single machine gun, does in bursts. The Hellgiver is a single ER large laser, and the Sentinel, which is a single medium laser. The other ones are a little bit buggy, unfortunately. So this one don't use, the dropship ones don't use, and definitely not the LRM. Calliope doesn't work. The ERPPC one you can use. It's a little bit buggy because you can't actually hit it unless you actually hit the actual weapons inside it. So it's a little bit difficult for players to hit. So anyways, you don't want to add too many turrets to a capture base. 1 or 2 sentinels is usually more than enough. And anyways, let's go ahead and do that. So archetype entity. I might have to go back and forward. There we go. And where's that sentinel? There we go. Yep. Remember, this thing actually does rotate, so you have to kind of think about where you're going to place it so it doesn't clip into things. And yeah, you can just bring it up a bit. So it looks all right. Because this whole thing will rotate back and forward like this. You can start the starting position. And so the turrets will automatically align themselves to the closest factory entity. If there's no factory entity, well, it's still going to align itself to the closest one, and that could be even kilometers away. So you have to consider where you want to put these turrets, and usually, most of the time, you're going to be close to a factory entity. And so they will switch teams accordingly to what the closest factory entity of which team it is on. You also have T flags. Let's see. These ones will simply switch in between the ownership of the actual capture point, so you can put that in strategic places. And, well, yeah, kind of resize it. And then this will change from one to the other. Can make it look a little bit better, but anyways, you get the idea. Let's see, what else is there? All right, one more thing, though. When we deleted that mech hanger with the doors, we forgot to remove this here. Because that would be a spawn group that's pointing to nothing, and people would be clicking on it. And I think that would cause spawn problems. It would just continually cycle the spawn timer. So we should get rid of that. All right, so what else is there? There's out of bounds. All right, so out of bounds areas are determined by, again, area shape or area box Typically, let's put on X, Y, and Z. You want to define the area. And to zoom out a bit, that corner. And if you don't want to have the whole map playable, so you only want part of it. Oh, there you go. And now let's set the height. 1,000 meters. Display filled. So this is going to be your playable area. Now you want to make sure that the area itself descends. No, it doesn't. See? Below the area. There we go. Below the lowest part of the area that you will playable area. And let's double check to see if it doesn't intersect. Ooh, that doesn't intersect, so that would be bad. Let's edit the shape. Not exactly ideal because the minute people would come, take off, that way they'd be going into the out of bounds area. But anyways, it's just for the point of it. And you can actually extend it over the edge of the map. It's no problem. But I mean, people will see the edge of the map now. It'll look kind of bad. So that's why you want to have typically sometimes a larger area that's not playable. And that's why sometimes the map, a larger area instead of 2048 by 2048, and you switch to 496 by 496 is sometimes preferred. So, okay. Now we have to create an entity, an out of bounds entity. So where is that now? Multiplayer. Forbidden area. There we go. Select it, drag it. It doesn't matter where it is. Typically you want to have it accessible so you can click it easily. If you ever want to change things, or you just simply look for it, and you can just call it forbidden area. I call it out of bounds. And notice that the reverse is true, so that means anything past it is going to be doing the damage, and it's going to be, let's set it for 10-second delay before it actually does the damage, and I don't know, 25 damage per second to the player. You can actually just set which team it is, so you can set individual areas where you only want to have one team getting damage, but that's rarely used. It basically avoids clamping areas for a certain team, so just outside of main or something else like that. I think only Zotomir uses that. Anyways, so we have to connect the area to the entity. So let's try to mouse over the area. Let's call it the area shape. Pick. There we go, and it's linked. So now we know it's active. Of course, actually you can technically, no, I guess I can't go underneath it if you'd be a submarine. Anyways, all right. What else is there? Time of day. All right, just to set the time of day, that is. All right, so to set the time of day, that's actually going to be in a flow graph. So how to get to flow graphs? Open view plane, flow graph. All right, so let's see, where is it now? we're going to have to create a entity, actually. Let's first create an area trigger. Where's that again? That's an area. No. Triggers, area trigger. Here we go. And again, bring it up. Well, not that high. And we're going to create a flow graph on that. So click on create. Actually, we'll just call it area trigger time of day. Call it TOD. Doesn't really matter. And then you select add graph default entity. Just ignore that. You can leave it disconnected. And then we say add node. You go to misc start. So that's when the game starts. Then this will trigger. Environment. No, where is it? There's ambient temp, global ambient temp. Actually, we'll do that here as well. So here we're going to do add node, math, set number. This is going to be the number that's going to set. Yeah. So let's say this is going to be a cold map, -5 degrees. Connect it to the temperature. Connect that here. Control C to copy. Right click. Paste with links. So it copies it too. And then we're going to set the global conductivity factor. Normally it's 1. This will significantly change the rate of dissipation of heat. So if you do 0.5, you're going to dissipate at half the speed. Like phlegeton is actually about 0.7, I think. So it happens very quickly. So you don't want to do big jumps in number. But let's say this atmosphere is dense. So put 1.1. And that pushes it there. And now we're going to do the temperature. Oh, I forgot where that is. Let me just find it. Is it flow nodes? Ah, there it is. Okay. Not temperature. I'm sorry. Time. Where is it? There we go. So, at the time, it's like 7 in the morning for a nice dawn. Speed. That's a progression of speeds throughout the day, 0.009. Usually it's going to give you for 60 minutes time and a half. So one day and a half is going to pass approximately. So set time and connect output to set speed. That's done. Alright, another thing you want to do is set a spectator point. So you can set multiple spectator points. So that's typically under multiplayer. spectator point. He's a bit too low. You can take a look at which way he's actually pointing. So right now he's pointing that way. You can rotate him. You can look at the capture point. Angle him down a bit. Bring it up. And then you'll be spectator point. Again, you can copy and put another one, and it'll cycle randomly between them. Make this guy look the other way. Into the distance. There we go. All right. Yes, so to actually make your map work, you can also need to create an XML file, and that's going to go into the map directory. Let me just pull that up for you. And here we go. This is going to be the actual format of the file. So you're going to have the name of the minimap, which we're going to generate soon. The loading screen, which is a DDS file. It's usually a lower res DDS file. The game rules, it's going to be typically the 3. TSA, train control, and practice test of strength mode. Display name has to match exactly. TC_tutorial, same thing as your as the path. So TC_tutorial. The header, text, and description could be anything. And that's the exact format and has to be named exactly like this, tc_tutorial.xml. All right, a few more tips regarding the terrain and the texturing. In the actual terrain edit terrain, you typically want to set the max height to something larger than the default. 1024 is always nice. This allows you to basically have terrain up to 1024 meters up. If you want to make canyons and such, actually what you want to do then, of course, is make your entire terrain high, and then cut into the terrain with your flatten tool or such. Yeah, so that's one way of doing more advanced features. Another thing that you can do is use roads, and roads actually can help you create terrain features as well. For example, if you want to create a road here, second, come on, there we go. So miscellaneous road, and not an XY, there we go, now we're an XY, and the road is basically a spline. So each time you left click, it creates a turn, and you can make a very long road across the whole area. And it can cut into terrain and such. Roads can be quite useful, and you double click to finish. to show the way towards towards capture points and such. People will naturally follow them. So again, if you select the road, you can actually edit it. I have to sometimes unselect and deselect it, and now click on Edit. And this is where you can set the height of the road. Oops, there's two parts to it. So if you want to delete one, just double click on it. There we go. And set the Z height, because what we're going to be doing, just extending it, making this lower, approximately the same height as the terrain. If you want to add a spot, hold down Control, click, left click, and bring it down. Sometimes you have to go underneath the ground to see it. Again, Control left click to add another spot. Bring this part back up a bit. If you want to make it follow the terrain a little bit, do that. Anyways, just a rough idea of what you can do. But here's the interesting part. If we move this down, and we make the actual width of it much wider, like 20 or even 30. Border width to 10. Step size is how detailed the curve is. So if you put a step size of much lower, it'll increase the resolution, I guess, or the smoothness of the turn. But if you put it to 10, it becomes a little bit more clunky. This will also affect frames per second. So the lower the step size, the more it'll have to render. Let's just change this one. Oops. Edit again. And if you don't get the actual right mode, you just have to click on Edit again. Make it go around the corner. Let's bring this down here. Down here a little bit. That looks terrible, so let's kill that part. Just double click to get rid of it again. That's the idea. Delete, delete. And that will move over to the capture point, which makes absolutely no sense, but anyways, you get the idea. But the cool thing is that the minute you click on this button, Align Height Map, you're going to see it just cut and raised the ground everywhere. Well, here's because it's too sharp, so I have to edit that. Make that a little bit smoother. As you can see, it cut into the terrain, and it raised the terrain accordingly. Click it again, and now it made a smooth slope. And this is very important to actually smooth certain areas that you want. If you want to have a smooth ramp, you just use a small section of road to make the ground a gradual slope, instead of having to actually deal with doing it manually in the terrain modify and trying to smooth out a gradient. This is a lot easier to do it this way. Of course, you can also texture your you set a material to it. So we go back to the material editor M, and we look for roads. Terrain, I think it's under terrain, and then roads. Or not. Oh, assign material to section. And I obviously did not do the right one. Oh, it's right here, sorry, roads. There we go. Assign. And there we go. We have our road. And as you can see, cut right through it. And we can always just smooth things out. Now, sometimes you notice that it won't render properly. All you have to do is click on the road itself, and it'll paint it according to the new terrain feature. So yeah, that's roads. Oh yeah, we'll just do a little bit more texturing for the terrain. So we've got cliff blocky, but frankly that's not a very good one. So let's see if we wanted to make something a little bit colder, like I mentioned. We can change the grass to something more appropriate. Let's see. No, this. Assign material. There we go. That's a little bit too detailed, I think, so how about we do 0.5? Yeah, actually, it's not bad. Looks a little... It looks alright. We can change... Okay, this is another thing. The layer texture is for the non-detailed texture, so that when you pull away. So in case, let's say, your environment detail layers are set to 3, as you pull away, it'll convert to this texture. You'll start seeing this texture right here. As you get closer, it switches over to the detailed texture. So you want to have textures that kind of match. You're never going to have exactly the same, but it's going to be close enough. And in this case, you always want to have an uncompressed type of texture. So it usually is A8, R8, G8, and B8. So 32-bit uncompressed texture. And the default one is, I think, too dark. So let's see if we select frozen grass. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. And now you're not going to see the difference, as far as I know, until we regenerate the texture, surface texture. Yeah, maybe that wasn't a great one. Let's see how that looks. Anyways, you have to play with it. Sometimes just trying to match it, and then also you can change the in your layer painter itself. You can change the actual color that you're painting. Anyways, well, we'll create another layer. And we'll call it mid slope. then we'll set this to, let's see, 15 to 30. And that will be, I don't know, so that's going to be cliff limestone. We'll change the texture to cliff brown, I guess, for the large texture, distant texture. And if we want to actually see it in the layer painter, we're going to have to go away from it, come back, and there we go. There's our medium slope. And now we can start painting it. Let's see how that looks. I don't know. Let's make it a little cold looking. There we go. And if we pull away, it's kind of brown though. That's because we used brown texture here. So let's change that to cliff frozen. There we go. Oh, I can't use that one because it's not uncompressed, I believe. Yeah, it's DXT1. We can use this one. There we go. As you can see, it's a little bit more gray. You can increase it much larger. And it paints everything from 15 to 30. And such. It's clicking everywhere. Do the out-of-bound area too, but again, if you're not going to be actually in the out-of-bound area or playing in that area, you don't have to necessarily make the textures look absolutely spectacular there, because most people won't notice it. So, and the more texture information and the different types of textures you use, obviously the more load there is. It's not a big thing though. If we're just got a few layers, like, you know, 10 layers under is more than fine. So let's go back to the cliff. Make this a little darker. Let's see how this looks. Oh, it's a little too dark, I think. That's not very pretty. Yeah, that's not a very nice one. Okay, let's try to change that one. But cliff, flat brown gray. Oh, nope. That's because also, it might be because of this. So let's do 0.5. That's a lot better. But again, that's not exactly what we want. How about white? Better, but no. So that should be a 0.05. Better, but still repeats too much. How about cliff eroded? No. Gray. It's actually not that bad. Now we can change the color temperature a little bit. go. So you get the idea. Just going to remove this then. Apply the texture everywhere. That looks pretty decent. Just this part looks a little bit rough. So maybe we can change the color of that. Make it a little bit lighter. That's a little bit better. Anyways. This is, well, not that pretty, but you get the idea. Remember, save. And generate the texture. Yeah, we still don't have the right grass texture. It's a little bit too dark. Actually, it's a distant one that's okay. It's a close one that's not that great. So let's just increase it a little bit. And what I do. Oh, right. Undo. Undo. It's because this is going to slope 90. Set it to slope 15. There we go. This is more of the frozen texture that I like. Except it's a little bit too. Get some. Oh, that's too dark. Still quite a dark texture. Yeah, it's not the best texture. Maybe that's better. Because now it's a little bit too light. That's better. Oh, closer to green. But anyways, you get the idea. Also, another thing is that the time of day heavily influences the look of the terrain. So as you can see, if we go to the red time, suddenly everything becomes quite warm looking. Different time of day, different effect. And also through the flow nodes, you can actually go ahead and change the temperature during the day just by getting the time and then reacting to the actual time and setting a new temperature. Yep, there's many ways to tweak this. All right, what else is there? Well, we're gonna have to test it out soon. Make sure this works. All right, so I've adjusted some of the colors and the textures and the time of day. Make it a little bit colder. So in this case, I used, for this one, Frozen Cliff, and Cliffstones Frozen for the steep walls. And this one is still the same, Cliff Basalt and Cliff Grey with dry brushes, and Plains Grass Green Frozen, and with Frozen Ground. Looks a little bit colder. I think looks fine. Anyways, I also adjust time of day. As you can see, the angle of the sun is a little bit more drastic. And this is at dawn, so I kind of gave it a little bit of a red. Anyways, as you can see, it highly affects look. And at night, brought down the sun color multiplier and the sky color multiplier to make it really look dark. And gave it a blue tinge to make it look a little bit colder overall. So anyways, time of day, set it to 12 to take minimap pictures. You have to find the exact center of the map. Now you can do that in a bunch of ways, but you can use your mouse over and find the exact position. One way to do it is actually create an area box and place it at 0, 0 and create it. Size of your map. And make the height so we can see it. There we go. And of course, since it's at 0, 0 and such, it's going to point out the exact position at the center of your map, which is right here. So that'll help us find the exact same position. And minimap, this is where your center of the picture will be. And you try to make it as close as possible to the middle. If it's not exact, it's okay. But anyways, the more offset it is, the more the map will be offset when you look at it in game. Sometimes they are a little bit offset. It's no big deal. So you set the resolution to the map, and the camera height, usually 248 is decent. click here, and then turn this off, and then generate minimap. Now, when it does that, it sometimes switches over to very high contrasty thing. This is not what it's actually going to see. In any case, don't worry about that. Once you generate the minimap, it's going to create a TGA file, and it's going to be placed into the Crisis Wars game screenshots map directory. And in this case, it's called, well, this number right here, 00100.tga. Open it in your preferred editor. I'm using Paint, you can use GIMP. In any case, you can change the necessary look in here. You'll draw in the out-of-bounds areas manually, and you can use pointers or items on the map in the game to kind of give you a reference of where it is to help you out, draw it out properly. And this is also where you put in any type of text information for the map. Yeah, you can obviously tweak things and such in here to make it look a little bit better and clean it up. And then you would actually export this as a DDS file with DXT1 compression. In this case, we're just using that, and then you'll name it as minimap.dds, but in this case, I'm just going to keep it this. You can always rename it later. You don't want to have any bitmaps, DXT1. Oops, sorry, I forgot to resize it. So you have to resize it to 248. And then export, save it as DDS. And done. Another thing, though, I forgot to mention, is here's your DDS file. This then you would copy over to your map folder. There we go. Rename it to minimap.dds. Verify it's 248. And one more thing, that in this XML file, you take this information here, and copy this into your tctutorial.xml file. Normally it's exactly the same, but that's to help you with the offset. And in this case, it's not TGA file, it's going to be the DDS. So minimap.dds. This will help center it on in-game. Save your tutorial.xml, and that's about it for the minimap. All right, to fix this high contrast issue, just exit the map editor and reload it. Reload your map. All right, so now we're ready to try out the map, but before we do that, there's a few little things that we can actually do to speed this whole process up of testing out a map and such. Place this command, connect_crynet 127.0.0.1 space 64101 or 64100, whatever your server port is set to in your server CFG file. which is then of course generated by the actual launcher when you go into configure the server mode. This will just basically automatically connect to your client when it loads without you having to go through the menu, and it shaves off a bunch of seconds. And it will only connect to it, obviously, if you have a server running. If not, then you can just leave that in your user.cfg. For example, here, it's right here in my bottom last line of the user CFG, and that goes into see users Rick, well, your username, documents my games crisis force MWLL client user.cfg. Once you're actually in game, these are the four commands that you actually run just to speed things up also on the server side. So you can basically enable your home button and speed up capturing rate, and obviously speed up the building of assets. And yeah, that's it. So let's give that a shot. Export, generate. Again, higher quality and calculate terrain sky accessibility. If you enable especially this one, it will take most likely over an hour, if not more. So I'd only do that with your final version.